The room was already decorated for our engagement celebration when my world fell apart. Golden lights hung across the walls. Soft music floated through the house. Friends laughed over glasses raised for us. My mother kept smiling every time she caught my eye, and Claire's mother looked just as proud. I reached into my jacket pocket and touched the ring one more time. Tonight was supposed to be the beginning of forever. Instead, it became the night I learned that forever could end before it even started. Claire stood near the window, holding a glass she hadn't touched. She wasn't laughing with everyone else. She wasn't smiling at me. She barely looked in my direction. Something inside me whispered that this wasn't nervousness. It was distance. I crossed the room anyway. You've been avoiding me all evening. She let out a slow breath without meeting my eyes. We need to talk. Those 4 words stole every bit of excitement from my chest. I forced a smile. Can it wait until after everyone leaves? No. Her voice stayed calm. Too calm. She finally turned toward me, and I realized she had already made peace with whatever she was about to do. I hadn't. Around us, conversations slowly faded. People noticed. Daniel, my best friend, stopped halfway through a joke. Claire's mother lowered her glass. Even the music suddenly felt too loud. Claire folded her hands together. I can't marry you. The words didn't make sense. I waited for the rest. Maybe she meant she wanted a different wedding date. Maybe she was scared. Maybe I've been seeing someone else. Everything around me became strangely quiet. Not because the music stopped, because my mind did. I searched her face for guilt, for fear, for anything that looked like the woman who used to fall asleep on my shoulder while we planned her future. Instead, I found certainty. Ooh, she hesitated only a moment. Ryan. The name landed harder than a punch. Ryan Brooks, the businessman everyone admired. The man who drove expensive cars and walked into every room like he already owned it. I laughed once, not because anything was funny, because my heart refused to believe what my ears had heard. This is a joke. It isn't. You've known him for a few months. She nodded. And I've known you for 6 years. Another breath escaped her lips. People change. I stared at her. No. My voice barely came out. They choose. Her eyes finally met mine. I've outgrown this life. Our life. She glanced around the room. This. The apartment. The simple decorations. The people who loved us. Everything we had built together. It isn't enough anymore. My fingers closed around the ring inside my pocket. I thought happiness was enough. It was once. The pause hurt more than the words. But I want more. What does more even mean? She looked toward the entrance. A black luxury car had just stopped outside. Ryan stepped out, adjusting the sleeve of his expensive suit before walking toward the house. She smiled. Not at me. At him. I want opportunities. I want to travel. I want a different future. You mean his future? She didn't deny it. Daniel walked closer. Ethan, I lifted one hand without taking my eyes off Claire. Not now. Please. Not now. Ryan entered the room with complete confidence. Several guests exchanged uncomfortable glances. He didn't seem embarrassed. If anything, he looked impatient. Claire reached in her purse. A small velvet box appeared in her hand. My heartbeat slowed. She opened it. Inside rested the engagement ring I had given her only 2 weeks earlier. She held it toward me. I can't keep this. My hand refused to move. Neither of us spoke. The room watched. She gently took my wrist and placed the box into my palm. The weight felt impossible. So small. So heavy. I'm sorry. The apology sounded practiced. Like something repeated many times before tonight. I searched for tears. There weren't any. Only relief. Ryan stepped beside her. We should go. Those words finally woke me. You knew. He didn't answer. His silence was answer enough. Claire reached for his hand. That single movement shattered the last piece of hope I had been holding together. You planned this. Her eyes softened just a little. I didn't want to hurt you. A bitter smile found its way onto my face. Then you picked a strange way to avoid it. Nobody moved. Nobody celebrated anymore. Claire's mother slowly shook her head. I warned you. Claire looked away. I have to live my own life. Her mother didn't stop her. She simply stepped aside. That somehow hurt even more. Ryan opened the front door. Cold evening air rushed inside. Claire paused beside me for 1 second. I hope someday you'll understand. I looked at the ring resting in my hand. I already understand. She waited. You chose a bigger house over the person who would have made any house feel like home. Her lips parted. Nothing came out. Then she walked away. The front door closed. The sound echoed through every corner of the room. Nobody knew what to say. Guests quietly gathered their coats. One by one, they disappeared into the night. Daniel stayed. He placed a hand on my shoulder. I'll stay. I managed a weak shake of my head. Not tonight. His eyes stayed on me another moment before he nodded. If you need me. I know. Soon the apartment was empty. Only the decorations remained. Balloons floated near the ceiling. Half-eaten cake sat untouched. 2 dinner plates waited on the table exactly where I had arranged them that afternoon. Steam no longer rose from the food. Everything had gone cold. I sat alone, across from an empty chair. Hours earlier, I imagined Claire smiling there while we talked about honeymoon plans. Now I couldn't even imagine hearing her laugh again. Near midnight, I walked into our bedroom. Her side of the closet stood open. Empty hangers swayed slightly. Every dress was gone. Every pair of shoes. Every photograph she loved. She hadn't decided today. She had been leaving for days while I kept believing we were building a future together. My phone vibrated. One new message. From Claire. I stared at the screen before opening it. I'm sorry for hurting you, but this is the right choice. I'll never regret this. Please don't contact me. A second later, another notification appeared. Message failed to send. You can no longer reply to this conversation. She had already blocked me. I stood there holding the phone until the screen went dark. Then I walked back into the living room. The engagement ring was still inside its velvet box. I opened the drawer beside the television. Carefully, I placed the ring inside. The drawer closed with a soft click. I rested my hand on the handle for a long moment. Tears blurred my vision, but another feeling slowly rose beneath the pain. Not anger, not revenge, something quieter, a promise. If Claire ever looked back, she would find someone she no longer recognized. The hardest part wasn't watching Claire leave. The hardest part came the next morning. I woke up reaching across the bed without thinking. My hand landed on a cold sheet, and the truth hit me all over again. The apartment felt too big for one person. Every room reminded me of promises that no longer existed. The decorations from our engagement party were gone, but the empty spaces they left behind somehow hurt even more. I stopped cooking. I stopped answering calls. Most evenings ended with me sitting in the same chair, staring at the closed drawer that held the ring she returned. It became easier to watch life through my window than to live it. One Saturday morning, loud knocking echoed through the apartment. I ignored it. The knocking came again. Ethan opened the door. Daniel. I stayed where I was. Another minute passed. If you don't open this door, I'm using the spare key. A lock clicked. The door swung open. Daniel stepped inside, carrying 2 cups of coffee. He looked around the apartment and frowned. Dirty dishes, closed curtains, laundry on the couch. You've turned this place into a cave. I'm fine. He handed me a cup anyway. No, you're surviving. I wrapped my hands around the warm cup without drinking. He sat across from me. You know what's bothering me the most? I shrugged. You still think this is your fault. It wasn't enough. Daniel leaned forward. You. He pointed at me. You were enough. His fingers shifted toward the window. She wanted something different. Same thing. No. His voice stayed firm. Those aren't the same. I didn't answer. He let the silence do its work. Finally, he stood. Come outside. I don't feel like it. I know. He smiled a little. That's exactly why we're going. The fresh air felt strange after spending so many days indoors. We walked through the park without speaking. Children laughed nearby. Couples held hands. Every happy face reminded me of what I had lost. Daniel stopped beside a small lake. You've got 2 choices. I kept watching the water. You can spend years trying to understand someone else's decision. He skipped a stone across the lake. Or you can build a life so good that her choice stops mattering. I let those words settle. Neither option sounded easy. One sounded possible. The next week I received an email from my company. A leadership position had opened in another city. Long hours, more pressure, a chance to manage an entirely new team. 3 months earlier, I would have rejected it immediately. Claire never wanted to leave this city. Now, there was nothing keeping me here except memories. Daniel grinned after reading the offer. What are you waiting for? I'm not sure I'm ready. Nobody ever is. He folded the laptop shut. Go become the man you've been afraid to become. 3 weeks later, I packed everything into a moving truck. Before leaving, I walked through the apartment one last time. The drawer opened. The engagement ring remained inside. I stared at it for several seconds. Then I closed the drawer. That chapter belonged there, not in my pocket. The new city welcomed me with noise, traffic, and endless work. My days started before sunrise. Most nights ended long after dark. The schedule left little room to think about Claire. That turned out to be a gift. I joined a gym because exhaustion felt better than loneliness. At first, I struggled to finish simple workouts. My body felt almost as broken as my heart. An older trainer laughed after watching me give up halfway through a session. Tomorrow, he tossed me a towel. You'll do one more than today. The next morning, I returned. Then again, weeks became months. The mirrors slowly showed someone different. Not perfect, stronger. The promotion pushed me even harder. Meetings, presentations, difficult clients. There were days when I wanted to quit. Instead, I remembered the promise I made beside that drawer. Someone she wouldn't recognize. Every challenge became another step toward that promise. Nearly a year after moving, I met Olivia. She arrived at our office carrying building plans under one arm and coffee in the other. The coffee slipped. The lid popped open. Brown drops splashed across my desk. Her eyes grew wide. Oh no. She grabbed a stack of napkins. I'm so sorry. I couldn't help smiling. It's only coffee. She laughed with relief. Good. I thought I destroyed your entire morning. Just the paperwork. I'll help fix it. She stayed long after the meeting ended, organizing damaged documents with me. There was no flirting, no pretending, just quiet teamwork. Before leaving, she smiled. I owe you another coffee. I think we're even. She pointed at the stained desk. Not yet. A fresh cup appeared on my desk the following morning. No note, just coffee. That simple gesture stayed with me. Over the next few months, our paths crossed often. Lunch breaks turned into conversations. Conversations became evening walks after work. One rainy afternoon, we waited under the same bus stop roof. She noticed me staring into the distance. Long day, you could say that. She studied my face for a moment. You're carrying something heavy. I smiled politely. Everyone is. Instead of pushing for answers, she nodded. When you're ready. That was all. No pressure. No questions. No digging through old wounds. She simply respected my silence. That kindness surprised me. Claire always wanted quick answers. Olivia allowed unfinished thoughts to stay unfinished. One evening, she invited me to help paint a community center. Children ran through the halls while volunteers laughed with brushes covered in blue paint. A little boy accidentally covered my shirt. He froze. I'm sorry. I laughed. I've survived worse. Olivia glanced over with a grin. See? Blue suits you. That laugh came naturally. I hadn't realized how long it had been since one escaped without effort. Months passed. Work improved. My confidence slowly returned. One afternoon, Daniel called. You've been hiding something. What? I heard you smiled in a photo. I laughed. So now smiling is suspicious? After everything? Absolutely. We both laughed. Then his voice softened. I missed hearing that. So have I. Before ending the call, Daniel cleared his throat. One more thing. What is it? I heard something about Claire. The smile faded. I don't need updates. You should know this one. I stayed quiet. People are talking. He hesitated. Ryan's company isn't doing as well as everyone thought. I leaned back in my chair. So, that's all. He waited. I gave him nothing. Finally, he chuckled. You really have changed. After hanging up, I realized he was right. Months earlier, I would have searched every detail. Now I simply returned to work. That evening, Olivia placed another coffee beside my keyboard. You forgot to take a break. I'm getting predictable. You work too hard. She smiled warmly. So, dinner. I looked at her. No games. No conditions. No pretending to be someone else. Yeah, I'd like that. Life kept moving. The pain never disappeared completely. It simply stopped driving every decision I made. Then, Almost 3 years after Claire walked away, my phone buzzed while I was leaving the office. One notification. The friend request stayed on my phone for almost an hour. I didn't accept it. I didn't delete it. The screen went dark, but the past refused to do the same. Claire's name had once been the first thing I searched for every morning. Now it felt like a letter delivered to the wrong address. Olivia noticed I had stopped eating halfway through dinner. You've been staring at your phone since we sat down. I turned the screen over. An old chapter came back. She didn't reach for the phone. She didn't ask who. Instead, she smiled gently. Does it deserve another page? That question stayed with me. When I got home, I opened the notification again. My thumb hovered over the buttons. Accept. Delete. Neither felt right. Finally, I accepted the request. A message arrived almost immediately. Hi, Ethan. I know this is unexpected. I hope you're doing well. 3 years ago, I would have read those words 100 times. Now they felt strangely empty. I typed a reply. I'm doing well. I hope you're well too. A few dots appeared. They disappeared. Then another message. Can we talk sometime? I leaned back in my chair. The answer came easier than I expected. I don't think that's a good idea. I wish you the best. I pressed send. Nothing angry. Nothing cruel. Just a closed door. The conversation ended there. I muted the chat, locked my phone, and made myself a cup of tea. That surprised me more than the message itself. Years ago, I dreamed about hearing from Claire again. Now I slept peacefully that night. Life kept moving. Work became even busier. Olivia and I spent weekends exploring the city, trying small restaurants, visiting parks, and laughing over things that didn't matter. Everything felt light. There was no guessing, no fear that love might disappear overnight. One afternoon, we stood on a quiet hill overlooking the river. The wind played with her hair while she admired the view. It's beautiful. It is. She smiled. I wasn't talking about the river. My heart raced. Not from fear this time. From certainty. I reached into my jacket. A different ring rested inside. Not connected to pain. Connected to hope. Olivia covered her mouth as soon as she saw the box. Her eyes filled before I even spoke. I don't have a perfect speech. She laughed through happy tears. Good, because I'd probably forget it anyway. Another laugh escaped her. I held out the ring. I only know one thing. She waited. I never want to imagine tomorrow without you in it. She nodded before I could finish. Yes. The word came out with a trembling smile. Yes. As I placed the ring on her finger, something inside me quietly healed. This ring stayed. She wrapped both arms around me. You've made me the happiest woman in the world. I rested my forehead against hers. You've already done that for me. Daniel nearly tackled me when I shared the news. I knew it. He hugged me so hard I almost dropped the engagement photo we had just taken. I've never seen you this happy. I didn't know happiness could feel this calm. He stepped back. That's because this one's real. The weeks flew by. Wedding plans replaced old memories. Guest lists, venue visits, cake tasting, flowers. Simple decisions that somehow carried so much joy. One evening, Olivia spread invitation cards across the dining table. So, she held one up. Ready? I nodded. We started writing names together. Family, friends, co-workers, neighbors. Then my pen stopped. Claire. The blank invitation waited. Olivia noticed. You don't have to. I know. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. I trust you. Those 3 words meant more than she probably realized. No jealousy, no fear, only trust. I wrote Claire's name carefully. Olivia watched me seal the envelope. No message. I shook my head. No hidden meaning. No revenge. I don't need revenge. She smiled softly. Then why send it? I thought for a moment. Because I'm not hiding my happiness. She nodded. That's a good reason. The invitation disappeared into the mailbox the next morning. I didn't think about it again. Across the following weeks, life stayed busy. Then one afternoon, Daniel called. You'll never believe what I heard. I laughed. You always start conversations like that. This one's different. I leaned back in my office chair. What happened? Ryan's company collapsed. The room grew quiet. Daniel continued. There was an investigation. Bad investments. Questionable business deals. Everything fell apart. I closed my laptop. And Claire. I don't know much. Another pause. People say they're barely seen together anymore. The call ended. I stared out my office window. I expected satisfaction. Instead, I felt nothing. Their choices had created their own consequences. My life no longer depended on watching theirs. That evening, Olivia found me watering flowers on our apartment balcony. "You've been thinking." News from the past. She stepped beside me. "Do you miss it?" I smiled. "No. What do you miss?" I turned toward her. Only the version of myself who didn't know better. She slipped her hand into mine. "I like this version more." "So do I." A week later, our engagement photos arrived. We laughed while looking through them together. One picture caught my attention. Olivia stood beneath the sunset, smiling with the engagement ring shining on her hand. Not because it was expensive, because she wore it with pride. She never hid it. She never returned it. She chose it. She chose me. Far across the city, without my knowledge, another pair of hands held that same photograph. Claire had searched my social media after receiving the invitation. The public engagement announcement was impossible to miss. The comments overflowed with congratulations. Daniel later told me mutual friends had noticed something strange. Claire viewed every new picture within minutes. She never reacted, never commented. She only watched. The invitation reached her during those same days. I didn't see the moment. I only learned pieces of it later. The envelope rested on her kitchen table beside unpaid bills. Ryan had stopped coming home regularly. Newspapers carried stories about his failed company. Luxury had become arguments. Dreams had become debt. She opened my invitation expecting something, maybe bitterness, maybe anger. Instead, she found elegant words. A wedding date. A location. 2 names. Ethan Carter and Olivia Hayes request the honor of your presence. No accusation. No insult. No reminder of the past. Just proof that life had continued without her. Someone later told Daniel that Claire stared at the invitation for nearly an hour. Beside it sat an old velvet box. The same engagement ring she had returned years earlier. She had secretly kept it after asking for it back from her mother. Now, my invitation rested beside the future she had rejected. She finally understood something I had already accepted. The man she left behind no longer existed. That evening, I came home carrying groceries. Olivia greeted me with a smile and kissed my cheek. "Long day." The usual. She reached into one of the bags. "I'll start dinner. I'll set the table." Our apartment filled with warm smells and quiet laughter. Nothing dramatic. Nothing uncertain. Just peace. Near midnight, after Olivia had gone to bed, a sharp knock echoed through the apartment. Another knock followed. Slow. Hesitant. I walked toward the door. The hallway light shone through the peephole. A woman stood outside with lowered shoulders and tired eyes. My hand stayed on the doorknob for several long seconds. 3 years. That was how long it had taken for Claire to stand on the other side of my door. The woman through the peephole looked nothing like the one who had walked away from me. The expensive confidence was gone. Her shoulders sagged beneath a plain coat. Dark circles rested under tired eyes. Even the way she stood felt uncertain. I unlocked the door. She gave me a weak smile that disappeared almost as quickly as it appeared. "Hi." The word barely carried any strength. "What are you doing here?" She glanced down the hallway before answering. "I know it's late." "It is. I needed to see you." The apartment behind me was warm. The hallway outside felt cold. Neither of us moved. Finally, I stepped aside. "You have 5 minutes." She entered quietly. Her eyes wandered across the living room. Family photos covered one wall. Wedding invitations rested on the dining table. Flowers Olivia had bought that morning brightened the window. Claire stopped when she noticed a framed engagement picture. Olivia leaned against my shoulder, laughing at something I had whispered. Claire stared at it longer than she should have. "You look happy." "I am." Her fingers tightened around the strap of her purse. "I almost didn't come." "What changed?" "The invitation." A bitter smile crossed her face. "I thought I'd feel angry." She let out a slow breath. Instead, I realized I'd lost the right to be. I stayed standing. She noticed. "You don't even offer me a seat anymore." "This isn't a visit." She nodded gently. "I guess I earned that." The room grew quiet. Years earlier, I would have rushed to fill every uncomfortable pause. Now I let it stay. She finally lifted her head. Ryan and I are over. I didn't react. He left months ago. Again, I remained silent. He wasn't the man I believed he was. She laughed once, but there was no joy in it. The funny part? Her eyes became glossy. He never pretended. I waited. I only saw what I wanted to see. She sat on the edge of the couch without being invited. He loved attention. He loved expensive things. He loved having someone beside him who made him look successful. Her voice dropped. But he never loved me. I folded my arms. You chose him. I know. You chose that life. I know. You chose to leave. Her head lowered. I know. Every answer came quietly. No excuses. No arguments. Just truth. She reached in her purse and removed an old photograph. It was faded around the edges. I recognized it immediately. Our first engagement picture. The one taken only minutes after I proposed. She placed it on the coffee table. My mom kept this. I looked at the photo. Neither of us looked away from the camera. Neither of us knew how close we were to losing everything. Claire brushed a finger across the picture. I found it last week. Her voice trembled. She never threw it away. What did she say? A sad smile appeared. She looked at me and said, Claire paused to steady herself. This was the day you threw away the best man who ever loved you. She swallowed hard. I couldn't answer her. I believed every word. Margaret had warned Claire before. Now even she couldn't protect her from regret. Claire turned toward me. I made the biggest mistake of my life. I leaned against the wall. I believe you. Hope flashed across her face. You do? Yes. She stood quickly. Then maybe... No. That single word stopped her. Hope disappeared just as fast. I wasn't finished. She nodded slowly. I believe you made a terrible mistake. I glanced toward the engagement photo on the wall. But mistakes have consequences. She took one careful step closer. We had 6 years together. We did. Doesn't that count for something? It counts. Another step. What if we started over? My heart remembered the man who would have accepted that offer without thinking. That version of me still existed somewhere deep inside. He remembered birthdays, late-night drives, dreams whispered before sleep. He remembered loving Claire with everything he had. Then another memory pushed forward. The returned ring, the cold dinner, the empty closet, the message that ended with 4 words. I'll never regret this. I met her eyes. The man who would have taken you back. I paused. He's gone. Tears finally rolled down her cheeks. I know I don't deserve another chance. No, I just hope. She couldn't finish. I walked to the dining table. The wedding venue contract rested there, waiting for one final signature. I picked it up. Claire watched the paper in my hands. This gets signed tomorrow. Her shoulders dropped. So it's really over. It ended 3 years ago. She closed her eyes. I just refused to believe it. I placed the contract back on the table. You know what the hardest part was? She looked up. I spent months wondering what I could have done differently. My voice stayed calm. I blamed myself. I thought if I'd earned more money, if I'd bought a bigger house, if I'd been more exciting. I smiled sadly. None of that would have changed your decision. Claire covered her mouth. I'm sorry. I know. I was selfish. You were. I confused comfort with weakness. I nodded. You did. I thought excitement meant happiness. And now... She looked around my apartment. The quiet, the flowers, the wedding invitations, the framed photos. Now she understood. I understand too late. The words barely reached me. I walked toward the front door and opened it. She didn't move. You aren't angry. The question surprised me. I was... What happened? I got tired. Tired? Carrying anger is heavy. I gave her a small smile. I'd rather carry peace. Fresh tears filled her eyes. I wish I had learned that sooner. So do I. She stepped into the hallway. Then turned one last time. Ethan. I waited. I really loved you. I believed her. Not because love had been enough. Because people can love someone and still destroy them. I know. She frowned slightly. You know, I never doubted that. Then why? Because love without loyalty doesn't build a life. Those words settled between us. She had no answer. Neither of us needed one. She slowly walked toward the elevator. Halfway there, she stopped. Without facing me, she spoke one last time. I hope Olivia never has to wonder where she stands. She won't. The elevator doors opened. Claire stepped inside. She didn't wave. She didn't ask me to wait. The doors closed. I stood there until the numbers above the elevator disappeared. Then I returned inside. The apartment felt peaceful again. I locked the door gently, not with anger, with acceptance. The next morning arrived bright and clear. Today was my wedding day. I opened the front door to find a small envelope resting on the welcome mat. No stamp, no return address, only my name, written in handwriting I recognized. The envelope felt heavier than paper should. Outside, the morning sun painted the hallway in soft gold. Inside, my wedding suit hung neatly by the window. Two different futures waited for me. One belonged to the past. The other was only a few hours away. I closed the front door and carried the letter to the kitchen. A fresh cup of coffee sat untouched while I broke the seal. Claire's handwriting filled the page. Every line looked careful, as if she had rewritten it many times before finding the courage to leave it at my door. I began to read. Ethan, this is the last time I'll ask for your attention. I took a slow breath and continued. I'm not writing because I expect forgiveness. I'm not writing because I hope you'll change your mind. I lost that right a long time ago. My eyes stayed on the page. 3 years ago, I believed I was choosing a better future. The truth is, I was only chasing an image. I confused expensive things with a meaningful life. I confused excitement with love. By the time I understood the difference, you were already becoming the man I never believed you could be. A quiet laugh escaped me. Not because her words were funny, because they no longer had the power to break me. The letter continued. Your wedding invitation hurt more than anything else ever could. Not because you wanted revenge, because you didn't. There was no anger, no cruel message, just proof that life moved forward without me. I rested the paper on the table for a moment. The apartment was completely still. Years ago, that kind of silence would have felt lonely. Today it felt peaceful. I picked up the letter again. I finally understand something I refuse to see. Regret cannot erase consequences. Love cannot grow where trust has already been thrown away. You once offered me a future built on loyalty. I traded it for a dream that disappeared the moment life became difficult. My eyes blurred slightly. Not for heartbreak, from acceptance. The final lines waited at the bottom of the page. I hope Olivia always knows how deeply she is loved. I hope she never has to question where she stands in your heart. Please give her the life I was too blind to value. I truly hope you're happy. Goodbye, Ethan. Claire. The letter slipped onto the table. I sat quietly for several minutes. There were no more questions, no hidden meanings, no unfinished conversations. Just two people who had finally accepted the truth. I folded the letter carefully. Then I walked into the living room. The old drawer waited exactly where it always had. My hand rested on the handle. The wood felt smooth beneath my fingers. I opened it. The velvet box still rested inside. I hadn't touched it since the day Claire returned the ring. I lifted the box gently. For a moment, I remembered the younger version of myself. The man who believed love alone could solve every problem. I smiled at him. He had been kind. He had been loyal. He simply hadn't learned, yet that love also needed respect. I placed Claire's letter beside the velvet box. The two things belonged together. One represented a promise that had been broken. The other represented a lesson finally understood. The drawer slid closed. This time, I knew I would never open it again. A knock sounded at the door. Daniel stepped inside wearing a suit that looked slightly too tight. He adjusted his tie and laughed. Don't tell anyone I needed 3 videos to figure this thing out. I grinned. You still got it wrong. He looked down. Oh, another laugh filled the room. He straightened the tie again. There. Much better. He studied my face. You okay? I nodded. Better than okay. His eyes moved toward the closed drawer. You finally put away? Forever. Daniel smiled. I've been waiting years to hear that. He placed one hand on my shoulder. I'm proud of you. The words landed differently today. 3 years ago, I needed someone to rescue me. Now I simply appreciated the friend who had refused to leave. The ceremony took place in a small garden surrounded by trees. Soft music floated through the air. Friends and family filled the rows of white chairs. Flowers lined the path leading to the altar. I stood beside the officiant, trying to slow my breathing. Daniel leaned closer. Nervous? A little. He smirked. Good. Why? Because this actually matters. The music changed. Everyone stood. Olivia appeared at the end of the aisle. She wasn't wearing the most expensive dress in the world. She didn't need to. Her smile carried everything I had ever hoped to find. She walked toward me with calm confidence. Every step felt certain. When she reached me, she slipped her hand into mine. You look handsome. So do you? She laughed softly. I had a feeling you'd say that. The ceremony began. The officiant spoke about commitment, trust, choosing each other every single day. Each word carried more meaning because I understood what happened when those things disappeared. Then came the vows. Olivia faced me. I can't promise life will always be easy. Her fingers gently squeezed mine. But I promise you won't face it alone. Emotion filled my throat. I don't need a perfect future. I smiled through wet eyes. I only need an honest one. She nodded. You have that. The wedding rings were placed into our hands. This time, the ring didn't feel like hope mixed with fear. It felt like certainty. I slipped it onto her finger. She did the same for me. Warm applause surrounded us. Kiss her. Daniel's voice rose above everyone else's, making the guests laugh. Olivia laughed too. Then she wrapped her arms around me. The kiss lasted only a moment. The feeling stayed much longer. Hours later, the celebration filled with music, dancing, and endless conversations. Margaret approached me quietly. Claire's mother smiled with tired but genuine eyes. You look happy. I am. She nodded. I always hoped you'd find this. Her gaze drifted across the room. I'm sorry for everything. You don't owe me an apology. She reached for my hand. Thank you. What for? For becoming a better man instead of a bitter one. Those words stayed with me long after she walked away. As the evening ended, Olivia and I stepped outside beneath a sky full of stars. She slipped her arm through mine. What are you thinking about? I watched the lights from the reception hall behind us. I used to believe happiness meant holding on. And now, it means knowing when to let go. She rested her head against my shoulder. We have a beautiful future ahead of us. We do. I took one last glance toward the quiet night. There was no anger waiting there. No need for revenge. No desire to hear another apology. Claire would build whatever life came next on her own. I truly hoped she found peace. Mine no longer depended on her pain. As Olivia and I walked toward our new beginning, I never looked back. I once believed the greatest victory would be hearing Claire admit she regretted leaving me. I was wrong.